younger people are treated the same way that you would treat any other employee. I also just love looking at data. And anything in ML, especially evals, is very much combing through data and looking at how a model is actually performing. So that was fun.
It was a passion because in Silicon Valley, everything is measured.
Yeah.
And you thought, like, why don't we measure this as well? It's a fantastic idea.
Essentially.
And how does it feel now working for a $2.8 billion startup and being a head of evals, not just like, an individual contributor, but a head? How does it feel?
I think it's...
Do you feel FOMO sometimes that you didn't go to college, you didn't have a campus life? So hello everyone, today we are with Arush, who is an 18-year-old head of evals at Groq, Groq with a Q, which just recently reached $2.8 billion evaluation. This is just, mind-blowing. It's an honor to me. Can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you. Hi, yeah, I'm Arush. I lead evals here at Groq, mostly focusing on like model quality and related things. And yeah, I'm 18. I joined Groq around a year ago.
Yeah, first of all, you don't promote and you don't push on anywhere, Twitter, LinkedIn, that you're an 18-year-old. First of all, I really want to know, how did it happen? Like, you are not going to college, and do you feel FOMO? When did you learn to code? How did you end up at Groq?
Yeah, for sure. So I started coding when I was around 6 or 7.
Wow.
My mom was actually executing a career pivot. She was going from architecture into software engineering. So she was learning Java at the time. And in my infinite wisdom, I thought that Java and JavaScript were the same language. So I started learning JavaScript on Khan Academy and started hacking on my projects ever since then.
Who inspired you at the time?
My mom, definitely. The way that she was able to just take something that was completely foreign to her, like going from architecture to software engineering is a huge step, two completely different fields. And she just went after it, and she got into software engineering then. Was just amazing for me to see, and it empowered me to kind of go after something like that myself. So I started working with software back then, and I'd been working on my own projects and such ever since that time.
What project?
So basically just smaller projects, the things that you do, like making smaller games using JavaScript or such, or trying to create calculators or building my own algorithms. And when I started learning actual Java or Python, that was what I did. But when ChatGPT came out back in December of 2022, I realized, oh my God, software can do things beyond my wildest dreams. And I started hacking with it. And when the Llama 1 weights were sort of leaked and released, I used Llama to actually automate my volunteer hours. So there's this program at a local library where you could create a trailer for a trailer for a young adult novel. And for each trailer that you made, they'd give you 4 volunteer hours. And
novel as in like a book?
Yeah. So basically creating like a movie trailer, but for a book.
Interesting. So you were using Llama to create a trailer of a book, but as a movie trailer. For example, people resonate their lives with Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So you're saying that before J.K. Rowling writes and releases her books, you can make a trailer video of the books with Llama. That was something like that.
Essentially, yeah. So a lot of these local libraries were facing like declining readership. So they wanted a way to get young readers interested in these books. So making these sorts of trailers was super useful to kind of drive more readership and engagement. So I started doing that, and if I did it manually, it would take me like 15 minutes, but I decided to automate it and have LLMs do the parts of like writing the script and identifying keywords to grab specific images to put as the backgrounds for these trailers. And I built like a fully autonomous like system for creating these book trailers just based off of like the title of the book.
Interesting.
And I think I cranked out somewhere around like 1,000 or so volunteer hours, and I got the Presidential Volunteer Service Award.
From where?
From the actual president, like from the government.
From the U.S. president?
Well, from the government, yeah.
Wow.
For the, like, based off of the volunteer hours that I got from this project.
That is mind-blowing. So this is a real problem you solved, by the way. To viewers watching, like there's a comprehension problem in America. Like 80% of America doesn't even read news media, like and pay for news media. That's the fact. And more than like 25% of America struggles to comprehend, art in the form of literature or even in terms of novels. So this is a real problem. There's lack of active readers who want to go to bookstore and read exciting books. So by creating videos, you're exciting them to, come to bookstore and buy books.
Yeah, that was essentially the project. But I started that was kind of the first unlock that I had, that AI is something that can actually impact people, and you can build things beyond your wildest imaginations with this. So I started building more and more projects in that space, and I decided in my senior year that I didn't want to go to college.
So first of all, ChatGPT came when you were 15, I believe.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Okay, right now you're 18, and around 16, you figured out that you don't want to college. You don't want to go to college.
No, I actually figured out that I didn't want to go to college when I was 17. So right after I finished my college applications, because I was still very college focused. I have Indian parents. They're still very, very concerned and very, they want me to have a good future. And college at the time was the best path that they could see. So I applied to colleges, and I've always been somebody who very much learns by doing, as you can see with all the projects and stuff that I've done. But I realized that I didn't want to be in front of a lecturer for the next 4 years of my life and learn by being talked to. I wanted to learn by doing and by implementing things that could actually impact people. So I withdrew all my college applications. I told my parents I got rejected from everywhere. And I started working in tech.
Directly. One of the research labs you started with, right?
Yeah.
What is it called?
So I started at Noose Research, working on synthetic data and post-training. I'm super, super thankful to the team there, because they gave me an opportunity and a chance to sort of grow and break into an industry where, it's notorious for being very difficult to break into tech. But I think the core of the Silicon Valley space is that people are willing to take chances on people that are unproven talent and allow them to grow and express themselves.
Wow. So, as an intro, again, this podcast will have two parts. The trends we see in AI right now, where it's heading in terms of inference, LLM evaluations, which you are head of, and your journey, because it is a dream of many people, and also the FOMO behind this journey, because you're not going to college. So continuing this path, so you went to news research labs. So you were working on LLMs because you had already explored Llama 1, and you had built some projects which gave trust to the labs. They hired you that, we have Aerys, who has already used some models out there, built and gotten recognition from the federal government. We can trust this person, so let's give Aerys a chance. That's how it happened. You applied and you got the opportunity at the first.
Essentially, yes. So I went to my first ever hackathon in March of last year, and I met some wonderful folks at Mistral. And
oh, wow.
There's one guy who stands out in particular, Theo Gervais. He's now started his own startup, Genesis, working on more visual reasoning and robotics work. And I was just chatting with him, and I was asking him, how do you get into industry? How do you sort of join a lab like this? And he said, you do it by just doing it, I guess. And he introduced me to the guys at Noose Research and said, you should talk to him. And I hopped on a call with Technium, Noose's head of post-training, and Jeff, who's their CEO now, and just chatted with them about my enthusiasm for my work and the sort of projects I've done already. And they hired me.
Interesting. So you were born and raised in Bay Area?
No, actually, I was born and raised in Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you moved to Bay Area for a hackathon?
I moved to the Bay Area midway through high school, actually.
Oh, wow. With your parents?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So then you started to network in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Got to attend hackathons. That hackathon what was it called?
It was the Mistral hackathon.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So you got to network in Bay Area, and that's how you finally got the first opportunity you wanted. You had you already realized that you don't want to go to college, and you luckily got opportunity at the same time. What was the time difference?
2 months.
Time gap.
2 months between when I withdrew my applications and when I got my first job.
Really? That was a bold move, that you actually withdrew your application way before you actually got an opportunity. How did you get the guts?
I think the perspective that I had is, am I going to be fully committed to what I want to do? And if I'm not committed to it, then why am I going down this path in the first place? So it was very much a note to myself that this is something that I want to do, and I am going to go to the ends of the earth to achieve it. And I don't want a backup plan. I want to just go after this
and go all in.
Or go all in.
What impact you made at News Research Labs that ultimately you landed in Groq, one of the well-renowned startup. It has, by the way, as an introduction to Groq with Q in the end, it provides 5x, sometimes even 10x inference as compared to Nvidia GPUs. Even cost is almost like 3 to 5x cheaper per token than Nvidia GPUs. It's fascinating, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, in some ways. So we build our own custom chips, and we host open source models like Llama or DeepSeek or Kimi on our own custom chips that are purpose-built for AI inference, and allow you guys to use them through the Groq API.
And you guys have your own data centers.
Yep.
You started with like 600 chips. Now you have more than 600,000 chips.
We have a ton of chips.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did you end up at Groq?
Yeah. So I met our VP of engineering, Gavin, at another hackathon a month later.
When you were working in News?
While I was at News Research. And I didn't want a job from him. I genuinely just wanted to learn and hear about his experience and his perspective on how to go forward in this industry, because I already had News Research and I was very, very happy there. I really enjoyed the work that I was doing. And it turns out that Gavin started working full-time when he was 18 as well.
Wow.
So I feel like we really meshed, and he basically said, hey, you want to join Groq? And I said, hell yes. And I joined as an intern a few months later after my time at News Research ended.
And I think the good question here would be, how did you shape your qualifications to be in AI labs, LLMs, which people even with PhDs right now struggle? So what qualifications you think you had that brought you here?
I think the thing that's most important is being genuinely passionate about what you're doing and being able to show that you have this passion in a way that's beyond just a line on a resume. I like to call it demonstrated competence. And what that means is, if you're passionate about something like evals in particular, which is my area of expertise, build stuff in that space. Put stuff out there on the internet that shows that you're actually good at what you say you do. Beyond just claiming it on a resume, be able to show that this is what I have done and this is what I'm interested in doing. So before I joined Groq, I made 2 different evals. One visual reasoning eval called set eval, and one debate-based multi-turn eval called Aerys.
Aerys.
Yeah.
One was set eval, one is
Aerys.
Can you, before getting deeper into evals, can you give an intro to what are evals?
Yeah. So evals are very much like an umbrella term now, but I think of them as a way to measure a model's quality in a quantifiable way.
And LLMs grade other LLMs, and you get the directionally possible answer that whether the LLM is functioning right or not.
Yeah.
Kind of, right?
In some cases, yes, LLMs can grade other LLMs. In other cases, it may be humans grading them, or in some cases, there's just like a ground truth, and it's like an exact match. Like an LLM has to output like a certain phrase, or like in a multiple choice question, it's like A, B, C, D. Very simple.
Yeah, example would be like Gemini grading Groq with a K, or like Gemini grading ChatGPT, and then because these models work in a probabilistic way, you can directionally, you can calculate the probability, for example, cosine similarity, these mathematical terms, which helps you check whether the answer is in the right direction or not. And that's how you grade LLMs, right?
Not exactly. So evals are very much a broad space, so there are multiple ways to go about it. But the general way that most LLMs are graded when it comes to evals, there are two ways. Number one is like exact match with a ground truth, and number two is LLM based grading. So in number one, essentially the model has to output like a certain phrase or a certain string that is matched to like a ground truth. Like for example, MMLU, which is a very famous benchmark, is a bunch of multiple choice questions. And what the model needs to output to gain a correct score is like the correct letter of the correct choice.
So fact checker for LLMs.
So there's like very much a ground truth that stuff can be verified against. The other one is more subjective, right? LLM based grading. For example, how do you evaluate a model's ability to write creatively? There's no true way that you can, reduce this down to like a yes or no answer. Like, is a model creative or is it not? So there are two ways to do this. Number one is to use another LLM with like a specific rubric to grade the output of a model. And the other way is just to have humans grade the output of the model.
But how does another LLM grades an existing LLM on creative writing? You wrote a beautiful essay. We can grade each other's essay, but how does LLM figure out if it's creative or not?
The same way that a human would. You give it a specific set of criteria to evaluate upon. Let's say the verbosity of the language, even subjective things like how beautiful the prose is. And you ask the LLM to make a decision or like give its own opinion on how the model performs on those specific categories.
And how much evals are important right now? How did you find? How did this industry found that this skill is so important and Arush can be the one fitting the gap?
I think evals have always been very important to machine learning in that if you're building a model or any form of neural network, you need to know that it's actually good at what you're trying to train it to do. With LLMs, it's a little more complex because you have such a different form of output from an LLM. It's much more creative and much more different from traditional ML models in which you can just look at the log probs of the model and figure out what the output is, right? With LLMs, it's much more subjective. What exactly are you trying to grade as well? Because LLMs are such versatile models, right? You can ask an LLM to do math. You can ask it to do creative writing. You can ask it to summarize something. You can ask it to do like a chat. So I think a lot of people have been realizing lately that you can't just... Different models are good at different things, right? Like Claude 4 Opus might excel at code generation
and writing.
While O3 might be much better at like systems design and reasoning. But it's also dependent on what exactly you're looking at, right? So how do you figure out what model is best for your use case? And that's where evals come in to show which model is better at what. It's also incredibly important to like the larger labs because they want to know what they're optimizing for.
Interesting.
And what exactly you're trying to build your model to do.
Got it. And just like you evaluate human, you write a bunch of prompts where you test a model against over and over again. And that's how you figure out, oh, this model is good for writing. This model is good for coding. This model is good for system design. And that's the expertise you gain by building two eval systems. One was set eval, other one was?
Aerys.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on those before joining Groq?
Yeah, so set eval and Aerys eval were two relatively simple evals. Set was just an eval that tested these models on the game of Set. So Set is a game where you have a bunch of cards and they have different patterns and colors and shapes on them, and different numbers of those shapes. And you have to find a combination of those shapes or of those cards that fulfills a specific requirement. So maybe they all need to share like the same color and the same, number of shapes. So it turns out that LLMs are very, very bad at spatial reasoning and understanding like different combinations and patterns, especially in the game of Set. And at the time, a lot of the benchmarks were getting saturated. Like MMLU had just reached, I think, 90% accuracy. So I built Set Eval with the help of some wonderful folks at Anthropic who are my friends.
Oh, wow.
And just as advisors. And it turned out that the frontier model at the time, which was Claude 3.5 Sonnet, I believe, scored less than 15% on this eval. I haven't actually tested the newer models on that, but I'd be curious to see if somebody can look at that repo and run those evals against newer models like, Kimi K2 or O3 and see how they do.
So first eval is a set game. You just tested how good these models perform on that game.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. What was the second one?
So Aerys was measuring LLM's abilities to engage in classical debate. So the goal with Aerys was to see how good models were at, persuasion and reasoning in a multi-turn fashion. And I think we found that Claude 3 Opus was the most powerful model at the time for debate and persuasion. I think Aerys was interesting because there aren't a lot of multi-turn evals where most of these evals are very much like question and answer. There aren't a lot of them that are like have the model reason through like multiple steps, different models talking to each other and figure out what the best model is in like a ELO style rating system. And I think Aerys was interesting at the time for just measuring LLMs like reasoning abilities.
That is fantastic because like debating is a big topic right now. Like if I want to become a better debater, it's a very hard skill. Like look at political debates.
Yeah.
It's really hard to persuade someone to like them. It's really hard to persuade someone to have the same views that they have. So these skills can be mastered by testing with LLMs and you can improve. You can know what kind of argument the other person is going to give you. So you tested it. It's a very important skill. And Sonnet being best at writing or like Claude being one of the best out there with writing, it's great at debating as well. That's what you figured out. And what inspired you to do these evals?
I felt it was very underrated at the time. Not a lot of people were caring about evals as much as I thought that they should have.
It was a personal project or at news research?
No, these were both personal projects.
Okay.
And I honestly just thought it was very cool to be able to condense a model's capabilities in a specific field down into like a number. And directly measure the quality of something. And I also just love looking at data. And anything in ML, especially evals, is very much combing through data and looking at how a model is actually performing. So that was fun.
It was a passion because in Silicon Valley, everything is measured.
Yeah.
And you thought like, why don't we measure this as well? It's a fantastic idea.
Essentially.
And how does it feel now working for a $2.8 billion startup and being a head of evals, not just like, an individual contributor, but a head? How does it feel?
I think it's very fun because Groq is a very meritocratic company. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you've done before. All that matters is what you can do now. And Groq empowers the people within it to do whatever they want as long as it provides value to this company. And we're very much focused on the quality of the models that we provide. And we because nobody wants to use a bad model, right? So any models that we host, we need to make sure that any changes we make, because we're moving a model from running on GPUs, which is what they're built for, to a completely different architecture of chip, the LPU. So we need to make sure that there aren't any quality issues with the model itself, and that's a relatively important part of our release process. So it's incredibly fun to be able to like handle a large part of what we do here.
And most importantly, with Groq, you guys are experts in LPUs, which are logically processing units, versus GPUs. And can you elaborate on what is the difference between LPU and a GPU, someone who is completely new to the LLM world?
Yep. So LPUs, language processing units, are chips that are purpose-built for AI inference. Our founder, Jonathan Ross, he created the TPU at Google. And one of the biggest things that he found to be interesting was that a lot of these chips are built for training and inference, just like the GPU. They need to be hybrid chips to be able to handle both parts of the ML workflow. But once you train a model, you plan on using it a lot. You plan on inferencing it a lot. So there should be a chip that's built specifically for that. And there are a lot of optimizations that you can do to a chip that's built for inference rather than just for training and inference, because there are a lot of concessions you need to make to allow for training on a chip as well. We don't have to deal with that when we're building ours.
For example, high memory. Like on GPUs, you need HBM, I believe. High bandwidth memory. So that is costly. In a chip, most important and one of the most expensive part is the memory. And you guys don't need to tackle that cost. And can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we do have memory on our chip, but we don't have HBM. What we have is SRAM, and it's significantly more. It's significantly faster to just have SRAM rather than HBM. We also allow for like sharding the model across like multiple chips, sometimes even racks of chips, hundreds or thousands of chips, and that allows us to just be much faster.
So your founder gives a very good example, that is a motorbike carrying workload versus a train carrying workload. Groq is treated as a train. Nvidia GPUs would be treated as a bike. Why is that?
There are two ways that you can build a chip. You can either be memory constrained or you can be compute constrained. With an Nvidia GPU, you are much more compute constrained than you are memory constrained, because there's a lot more memory per flop or like per chip, right? Whereas with our chips, we have less memory per chip, but each unit of memory, each kilobyte of memory has a lot more compute accorded to it. That allows for a lot more like faster parallel processing of parts of a model.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So because one chip can handle more compute, so that's why your 100% of the business model is on inference. Nvidia just has 40% of the inference market, even though they have majority of the training market. And that's why even the founder says Nvidia is not your competitor, because inference is low margin, and it's low margin, not an attractive business for Nvidia. You guys can ultimately take the whole market by actually deploying more chips and data centers. Can you add on to this?
Yeah, I think a lot of people portray Groq as an Nvidia competitor. I don't think we are. Nvidia has always been very much focused on the training market, and they're exceptionally good at that. And their chips will continue to be exceptionally important over the next 10, 20, 30 years in this space. We're more than happy to take all of the inference market and deal with the low margin business that inference is. And Nvidia should be. We're more than happy to let Nvidia just hold on to the training market as long as it wants to.
Interesting. So in terms of inference, inference is not easy. There are so many kinds of inference. You guys focus on solely open source inference or closed source inference, like for OpenAI as well?
We can run any ML model. These chips were built as general purpose ML inference accelerators. We aren't transformer specific. We aren't like LLM specific, and we're not open source specific either. Any model that anybody wants to run on us, we're more than happy happy to run it.
Even the video models, which Nvidia does an amazing job, for example, VO3 or some video models like Kling.
Yeah, we can run those too. Any ML model that you have, we can run it.
And you're faster than even for video models and image generation than any other model out there.
Yep.
So what is the biggest challenge for you all right now? If like Nvidia has 40% of inference market, why cannot you take all of it yet? Why take so long to create data centers?
I genuinely think that the biggest problem that Groq has is we cannot stand up enough data centers to satisfy all the demand that we're getting. The demand definitely outstrips supply in so many ways here. But we're working on it. And we've gotten to the point where we've been able to shrink the amount of time it takes to bring up a data center to 3 days, essentially. We brought up a data center in Helsinki, Finland a few weeks ago. And from the time that the hardware arrived in the data center to the time that we were serving tokens out of the data center was 3 days.
That's fantastic. If you think about even Elon Musk building a data center, it took in Tennessee 2 months. That was considered fast for H100 GPUs.
Yeah.
But why it's one of the fastest for your own chips?
I think we deal with every layer of the stack, right? All the way from building our own chips to building to bringing up our own data centers to the actual inference and traditional B2B SaaS style business model. So we're able to optimize at so many different layers of the stack. And that includes like data center bring up, because we've done it so many times and we're going to do it so many more times that it's like clockwork almost for us. Because with Elon, it was the first data center that he'd first data center of that scale that he'd brought up for the Colossus data center in Tennessee. We've done many data centers. So we've got it down pat.
So in your journey so far, what's the hardest thing you have ever built that you're proud of?
I think it has to be the Eval framework that we use here at Groq. Before I built this, our eval stack was basically just running a bunch of open source evals, and there's no like one standardized way to build evals yet. It's very much an unholy combination of Docker containers and random CLI flags to run all these different evals with different packages and such. So I built this thing that we internally called Groqbench. We're going to open source it soon and call it OpenBench, which is a really easy way to run a bunch of open source evals. MMLU Pro, Aider Polyglot, GPQA Diamond, Math 500, a bunch of these evals. You can just run them in the same way and run them really easily. And I think that's been a huge unlock to our like new model bring up teams and solutions architecting teams to be able to run evals in a really easy, beginner friendly way.
And how intensive evals is. For example, in models, most costly compute is in inference.
Yeah.
Then it's training, and then it's probably evals. Am I right?
I think evals are a part of the inference process. Because you have to inference the model to run the evals. But yeah, I don't think the analogy really holds up of like evals being a different part of this stack.
Interesting. And so how is your framework like building evals? What steps you take for someone out there just learning from you?
I think the biggest thing with evals is you need to figure out what exactly your problem is and what are you trying to evaluate it for. Because once you have that set up, it's very easy to just figure out how you evaluate it. The biggest problem is definitely what are you evaluating for. After you do that, it's very trivial to just set up a system that emulates what you're trying to evaluate.
Clarity of problem.
Yeah.
That's most important.
Yeah.
More clear the problem is, better the eval would be.
Yep, absolutely.
Got it. Let's do a rapid fire in the world of AI.
Yep.
So fill in the blank. Anyone who doesn't understand Dash will be left behind in 5 years.
Evals.
In 10 seconds, what is your hottest take about future of work?
I think it will take much longer for AI to infuse the workforce than people are expecting right now. Timelines are going to be longer, but I'm more than open to being proven wrong. I think it's too soon to tell, to be honest.
That's the biggest misconception out there.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, describe the biggest problem that companies have with hiring young people, because you being hired at the age of 17 and 18 wasn't easy. Companies still actually struggle in hiring young people.
I think it's hard to find young people because we don't know how to pitch ourselves or sell ourselves. So I think it's important that a lot of these companies have like a campus presence and try to recruit from universities. I think it's also important that younger people are treated the same way that you would treat any other employee.
And do you feel FOMO sometimes that you didn't go to college, you didn't have a campus life? A lot of people, I think, who are at least introverts, I'm not talking about everyone, who are introverts in their high school, when they don't go to college, they remain introverts. But someone who are extroverted, for example, people in Europe, they go for solo trips at the age of 18 and like grow up. They don't need college to grow up. So it's not everyone out there can just have a path like you that they will be fine. So what I'm saying is not everyone can be like you, can have a good personality without college.
I definitely feel to some extent there are things that I missed out on by not going to college. I think college is incredibly important for a large proportion of young people. It provides a place where you can learn in a sandbox environment with a group of peers who are around your age and doing similar things to you. They're all trying to figure stuff out. And it provides structure, which I think a lot of young people definitely need. But I think there's value for certain types of people to skipping that entirely. If you've already found your community and if you've already found what you want to do, then there's no better way to go forward than just doing it rather than sitting around and dilly-dally.
That is true. I think agency is most important. Like when you reach the stage when you are self-motivated to take action and you are convinced that you've figured out your career path, that's how solid you were. You were like all in. I know I don't want to go to college. I have the skills. I have found my niche I want to go into. And if I have the network in Bay Area, I don't need to. When you are at that stage, that's the stage you should be like, okay, I can try going to college, but I have my career path set.
Yeah,
I can even avoid going. And important question here would be, what trends you follow in your career these days? So you are in the forefront of AI and LLMs and evals. What trends you follow every day?
What do you mean by trends?
Trends in like technology, innovation, like every day what do you read about? So which help you in your career?
I think being on Twitter is one of the most valuable things that a young person in tech can do. It's a place where there's so much knowledge that can be gained just by hearing what other people in like larger labs or even solo developers are thinking about. So I think I gain a lot of my news from Twitter. I think it's very important to curate your feed though, because there are a lot of people who can sway you in directions that you shouldn't be swayed in. I guess that's an issue with just the internet in general. So you have to be very, very intentional with how you curate your Twitter feed.
It's about following the right people at the right platform.
Yep.
And when you have those right people around you, then you become like them. And they're sharing. I think so many researchers are on Twitter. Twitter was the first platform out there before LinkedIn where researchers were there, and they're still there.
Yep.
And they share one of the incredible insights. For example, Andre Karpathy, who everyone knows. And other than Twitter, what do you do for fun?
Build more evals.
Really?
Yeah, I like to hack and build my own projects. I'm very much like a learn by doing, and like I enjoy what I do. But outside of that, I like to read a lot. I'm a huge fantasy fan, especially Brandon Sanderson, and I think there's a lot to be learned from, just reading fiction as well, because you can put yourself in the shoes of these characters and learn what they're learning, and learn a lot of things about like philosophy and how the world works.
Got it. And how does a day in life look like then? You for fun, you do work on evals. You are head of evals at Groq. So how's your day like?
It really depends on what the company is doing at the time. If we're in like a state where we need to push something out, which is similar to what happened last week when we launched Kimi K2 running on Groq. It's very much you go to bed to Slack pings and you wake up to Slack pings. You do nothing else. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a very rewarding thing to be able to work with such talented engineers basically 24/7. But I do think it's very important to have a lot of alone time as well and be able to decompress and prevent burnout. So sometimes I'll take some time off and just, read a book, or I'll go for a walk. I really love going to parks and just laying down in the grass and I guess reconnecting with nature.
Very nice. And can we get to see some? Can I ask you about analytics? If I want to try VO3 on Google versus on Groq, will it be faster on Groq?
We don't currently host VO3 on Groq's platform, but if it was running on Groq, it would be faster.
Oh wow, that's a great claim. Mind blowing. How do you think of yourself in the next few years? How do you think you will shape your career? What do you want to do in the next few years?
I think I'm treating the next few years as my college almost. I want to be able to learn from incredibly talented people, and I think that I'm able to do that here at Groq. I want to do a lot more open source and open source work and give back to the community. And I think I'm going to be able to do a lot of that here. But who knows? Honestly, the next few years are going to be a time where I sort of just figure out what niche I'm going to take within the ML community and what I do. So it's going to be a time of learning, I think, for me.
What's the final advice you would give to your younger self? Would you say you could have started here sooner?
That's a good question. I think I would say don't care what other people think. Focus on doing what makes you truly happy, and you will find what you want to do.
Wow. That's a fantastic way to end. Thank you so much, Aerys, for having me. It was great talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
Incredible conversation. Thank you.